think I've always been autistic. It's a neurodevelopmental condition, so I've had it since birth. I think the best thing since getting my diagnosis is understanding why in my childhood I didn't interact with my peer group.
I wasn't diagnosed until adulthood. That meant that when I was younger I had really low self-esteem. I felt that I was broken, that I was kind of in some ways a fraud, that I was different, and I didn't understand why.
Most challenging thing for us as a family is simple everyday tasks mainly, and then because he hasn't got very many friends, in fact he hasn't got any friends outside of the house, he's always in the house, either at home. If he goes out, he'll go out for a walk. So in terms of care, he's always with us.
The way that Asperger's syndrome affects my life every day is mainly I really struggle with the sounds when people eat, and it makes me feel very upset and angry. I don't know if everyone with Asperger's syndrome has the same reaction as I do, but it's not very nice.
If something goes wrong, and it can just be simple things like travelling or something going wrong I haven't anticipated, that's very difficult.
Since I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, I always thought, even before I was diagnosed, that I was slightly different. And basically, I just think it's really interesting because we see the world in a different way, so I have a crazy imagination. The great side of having Asperger's is that I see people as animals. I am a giraffe. What animal are you?
Firstly, I don't think autism is a disability. It is challenging because the community do not understand I communicate differently, and I feel very vulnerable. This sometimes makes me angry.
Some of these people were very nasty to her, used her naiveties, for their own gain. She's now surrounded by wonderful people that understand her, and she feels totally comfortable.
Life for autistic people can be extremely difficult, and they have to show great courage. And I think in the case of my brother in particular, who's very severely affected with Asperger's syndrome, he has had to show great courage in his life, and he's done so, and I respect him for that.
We are not defective, diseased, in need of cure, treatment, broken or less than any other human being. If an autistic person isn't thriving, there will be reasons for that, and the reasons need to be investigated so that the person can be enabled.
I think one thing they need to understand is the reasons behind autistic people's behaviour. That it is not them being aggressive or awkward, but it's more a question that they are driven by compulsions that it is very difficult for them to control.
People with autism do not pick up social cues or social trends quite like others. They may act in a different way, have different ways of doing things, almost like a separate culture.
Autistic people are just as capable as anybody in life to achieve what they want to achieve. They just need that little extra support to help them do what they want. Sometimes autistic people do things on their own, but we all have different areas where we struggle with, and sometimes we just need a little guidance, and then we can just do what everyone else is doing.
I think having patience with us, different things which don't impact people with autism impact us.
Moving away from people's idea of what an autistic person is like to a spectrum where there are people at all points of that spectrum who we may come across in our lives. And I think it's just really important that people have some understanding of what that person is dealing with.
I'd like to think it's progressive enough to help employers become aware of autism and retaining people with autism and Asperger's in the workplace.
For people on the autistic spectrum, help with their social skills so that they are able to enjoy a good social life. Lots of people on the autistic spectrum really want to go out with people, but they don't have the skills. So whenever they try, they meet with a measure of social rejection and end up living very isolated lives.
It raises the awareness that there's a whole group of young people, young and older people out there who have every right to access everything that anyone else accesses, but that they may need some support, they may need adjustments, they may need understanding, may need time, patience, tolerance, all of those things, and that they have the right to do that and lead active, fulfilling, amazing lives.
I hope that there's greater understanding of how autism, how all of the autistic spectrum affects us, how it affects us in all parts of our lives, how there needs to be understanding across all services.
Transition from school to work is going to be a difficult one. We know that because of statistical evidence. 80% of people with autistic spectrum disorders don't go to work. Many of them could. Even with some very minor adjustments, people could be able to work. So I think that the employment of people with autistic spectrum disorders has got to be an important one.
I'm not sure. People make promises, but I haven't seen them in action. Tell the council to give me a job, and then I can honestly tell you what this have achieved.
So if I could change one thing, it would be that everybody was treated the same no matter what condition.
Despite what they have to offer, why are 80 to 85% of people on the autistic spectrum not employed? That has got to be tackled.
The professionals, the people who are at boardroom level need to come down, not down or up, but they need to work together. Sit there and listen to people with autism and listen to their stories, listen to what really matters to them in terms of services and how they can create the services that will work together and for everyone in society to work together.
Employ people like me and work with me, know what it's like to live in my life. Then that means that the council and the police are well on their way to achieving their goal.
I think it's got to be really, though, greater awareness, greater compassion, greater tolerance, that awful prejudice that used to exist, which was vile, that I hope that will start to go away.
I would like for the rest of the population to listen to us.
From when he was 18 months old and I'm having to prove that he's autistic, to now I'm having to prove that he needs, all the way through, every milestone, every hurdle has always been about having to justify and prove, and you just think, why can't we just remove all of that?
You cannot generalise that one size fits one is absolutely the most apt thing. It's really important that everyone understands that.